nation where we are busy putting death out of business. Wow, Latin America, we're talking Argentina. We're going to Argentina. We go all around the world with transhumanism. That's what I love about transhumanism. It's a global movement. It's on the march. And now we're going down to Argentina. Argentina is a great country. It's like one of those intermittent superpower type countries. It grows up, it has a great potential, then it sort of fades out, but it comes back every now and again. And no, it's a good country. It's a solid country. Put aside the Balkans or what? Not the Balkans. Anyway. But yeah, hey, look, we have Dr. Christian here. You're a doctor and you have an extensive record. Innovation Center of Bolivia, University of Social Sciences and Business at UCES, General Economic Conference. You've done a bunch of stuff. Federation of Commerce and Industry in the city of Buenos Aires, Indo-Argentinian Chamber of Commerce, external advisor to Deputy Juan Carlos Dizes Rogas, independent attorney, Ministry of Transport, Public Works of Ecuador. It goes on and on and on forever. So, let's introduce yourself. Pick out, your own, what you want to highlight from your career, because this is, it's pages, ladies and gentlemen. There's pages and pages and pages and pages of achievements and accomplishments here. It's going to take me an hour, but introduce yourself. Talk about yourself. What do you want to pick out of that long, extensive list? And yeah, transhumanism.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, thank you so much for your invitation, and hello to everyone around the world. It's a quite honor to be in your show. I am a huge fan of your show. Actually, I was seeing your improvements on this show, and I'm very honored to be right now with you and with all of you. So, well, to introduce myself, as you said, I have some expertise on this. So I'm going to introduce in the short way. Actually, I am the director of innovation of the Center of Innovation of Bolivia. And my idea is to bring all the experts of technology and become Bolivia the innovation hub in Latin America. Because Bolivia has the potential to be the fastest economy in Latin America. The last 10 years, their GDP growth more than 4%, even more than Colombia or Brazil or even Argentina. The economy is quite open, despite that the problem that we are facing right now with the Evo Morales, our president in Bolivia. But I saw on the news recently that he left the presidency, so so I am happy for this announcement. And the other day, I had the opportunity to give a conference at the National Congress of Argentina to talking about transhumanism and the future of humankind.
Cool.
And the problem right now in Latin America, the problem in Latin America right now is the mindset of the people. It's not the economical crisis that we are facing in the coming years. I think the problem that we are facing right now in Latin America, that the mindset is from the past, and we are entering in the new era of the economy. And the human is going to transform in something better. And I think that if people don't change the mindset, we are facing too many problems in the coming years.
Yeah, totally agree. And we're marching towards a host of problems. Yeah, you're right. The president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, is resigning. That's 31 minutes ago. That's breaking news right there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. These presidential upsets.
Yeah.
You're right. They can be dramatic for a country. Just look what happened with Brazil. Brazil was doing great, and then they had a bunch of corruption, and now that country is doing very differently to how it was before. Yeah, these these caucuses, these cabinet transitions can be quite dramatic for a country. But you're saying despite this, Bolivia is on the up and up. Can you just expand on that notion a little bit? Why Bolivia? Because it's relative GDP growth, right? So if it's growing at 4% off a low base, then that's not terribly good, right? But if it's growing off 4% off a marginal to an okay base, that's all right, right?
Yeah. Actually, the problem in general in Latin America is the corruption, like you said. And I think the natural resources in Latin America was our hope. And now, because of the transformation that we are facing right now in the entire world, natural resources is not going to be in our mindset. So with our mentality, we are going to transform everything around the world. And the mindset of the technology and the mindset of the new era that we are facing, this is going to be something, I don't know, impossible to explain, because I spent my entire life, and especially my last 5 years, studying about the future, about how it's going to transform technology, the business around the world, and how it's going to transform us in something completely different. And I saw that anyone can explain how the future is going to be looks like, and that is an issue, because no one knows who is going to transform the world. We know that 5G is going to be something incredible in our lives. We know that artificial intelligence is going to transform everything around us. And we know that transhumanism is going to be the evolution of humankind. It's not a movement, in my opinion. It's our destiny as humans.
Yeah, it's an inevitable destiny, and it's something that's been happening either consciously or subconsciously for the whole of human existence. And, you know, we're putting a name on the face of the natural progression of humans. For example, I don't know about in Bolivia or Ecuador, but where I am, because I'm not a huge Apple guy, okay? I don't have many Apple products now. I wish I did sometimes because of this thing. But I don't know. I don't follow Apple or whatever. But I just was walking around in the city, and I saw one day, and then I saw another one, and then I just saw them everywhere. And it was these people with these headphones. These headphones are these wireless headphones. They're a tiny little thing. And yeah, I just saw one, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting and groovy and whatever. And then suddenly everybody's wearing these headphones. Literally everybody, everywhere I walk, everyone's got these tiny little headphones in, you know. And I thought, wow, you know, but I know these people aren't transhumanists, or I'd be meeting with them and talking to them in real life, but they're just following the crowd. And I just thought, wow, what a transhumanist thing to do, you know, like these are normal people out there following in a consumer-based function where, you know, the old headphones with the wires down, they're perfectly cool. You know, people wear them but they're retro now. You know, now it's cool to have the headphones with the wireless, the wireless whatever from Apple. And I just thought, you know, that's totally this transhumanist idea, this subconscious transhumanist idea, where out there in the big wide world of celebrity or product innovation, or some group at Apple, some focus group or something has said, how do we sell these small headphones to everybody on the planet? And they've said, oh, we'll do this, and we'll give it to this person and that person. And suddenly I'm walking around Melbourne, and everyone's got these headphones. Now, that's a really small thing, but it's a transhumanist sub-vibe that runs through the whole mainstream culture, and and people are totally unaware and totally, you know, not cognizant of the fact that they are literally transhumanists. You know, they look like cyborgs, to be honest. Like they
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we don't know how many cyborgs there are in real life. You know, you're walking down the road, you don't know how many people have prosthetic limbs or implants of some sort, or contact. You know, this is a very common one now. Contacts is very, almost the norm now. But you don't know how many people have that. And you know, everybody wears clothes. Everybody has a mobile phone. I mean, people are so transhumanist already, but they can't put a name to what they're doing and what they're participating in. You know, so it's absolutely, it's a natural evolution. But right now, it's a consumer-focused evolution, and what we're trying to say is it can go beyond that. And let's talk about that, because you just gave a conference of that in Argentina, the future of humanity. Exactly. So tell us, what does that mean?
Well, the future of humanity, in my opinion, is going to be for the people who are ready for it, because like you said. In general, in Latin America, I would like to talk about Latin America, because this is the market that I know very well. But I don't know exactly in Australia or in USA if too many people is involved with the transformation of humans, and how technology is going to transform our lives. This is not just about this is not just to talk about commerce, or just to talk about something specific. This is something that is going to transform everything. And in Latin America, the problem is only a few of the people is really know about this situation, and that is a huge problem, because from the next year we are going into a new era of the world. And like you said, when you said something related with the cell phones, well, since 80s, we are already cyborgs, in my opinion. And technology is going to be, now is part of our lives. For example, to having contact with you 50 years ago was a little bit complicated, because technology wasn't as we are facing right now. And it was completely difficult, because if you want to be in contact with me, you should send me a letter. And now you have to tell me by WhatsApp or by Skype or by Facebook, you want to have this interview, and I just have to connect, and I am with you right now. So our lives are becoming digital lives, and our brain is going to be digital as well. And right now, only a part of our brain is digital, but in the coming years, this is going to be more than that is today, because right now our brain half is from our nature, and the other half is from the technology. But in the coming years, we are going to be more technological people, like we are right now. And not too many people in Argentina or in Bolivia or in any country in Latin America, they don't understand this concept. They just only focus on work and how artificial intelligence is going to affect our work, and nothing more. And I'm seeing that the most important challenge that we are facing in the coming years is focus more in our heart, because our heart has the potential that is impossible to explain right now. For example, some people don't realize how important the heart really is. For example, in terms of the magnetic field of the heart is 5,000 more important than our brain, because our brain don't have the same impact of our heart. And in our heart is our wisdom, is our potential, because we can manage the most important thing at the moment if you want to have work. And what is that? Is the intelligence, but not not all the intelligence. We are talking about the emotional intelligence. So in this sense, I assume that in the coming years, we have to face how we are going to transform our lives, but we don't forget that we want to work in our heart, because in our heart is the key of our transformation, in my opinion.
Yeah, the heart is extremely important organ, and you know, they get the little brain in the heart too. That's there's a bunch of the little brain is that, and that's a really important focus. And we were talking about this yesterday, actually. You know, what is the brain? You know, what is consciousness? What is the brain? And we're not going to know what consciousness is. Is it coming from a quantum field? You know, I'm going to hold out on the idea of what is consciousness until we hit brain reverse engineering, and then we can reverse engineer a brain. And if there's consciousness in that chemical structure, then maybe we'll find something. But it really, the door is open on what is consciousness. The door has been open on what is consciousness forever. But you know, the brain is a central computer for the rest of your nervous system and the rest of your body, right? So, you know, it's really interesting you're talking about this, because, you know, a lot of people say, you say, oh, what do you want to upload your mind in the future? And they go, oh, I don't want to upload my mind. That sounds really, really scary. That sounds really, really weird and crazy. But hang on, all of these people, if not most of them, vast majority, are happy to upload their memories to the cloud, which is essentially Facebook and Twitter and social media and YouTube and whatever. This is essentially a 1.0 version of a memory upload. It just doesn't have all the senses, but it has audio and visual being the primary senses, and it can store and record and everything. You just can't really access that information in a digital way, in a digital form. You access that information by consuming it through your prefrontal cortex and by generating images, just as you do with everything else. You know, with real life, everything is actually kind of 2D, like we see in 2D, really. I mean, that's kind of, we project out into 3D and our brains can work that out. But, you know, this mind uploading 1.0, people are doing it voluntarily. That's what Facebook is. It's mind uploading 1.0. It's not, you know, it's memory uploading. It's memory upload. So these people get freaked out about mind uploading, but they're taking infinite amount of Snapchat pictures and Facebook pictures of themselves and stuff like this. So it's kind of confusing how we live in its two-track world, where someone like yourself is out there saying, you know, this is really important. The future of humanity is headed in this direction. And literally everyone is walking in that direction, but everyone's in denial. Everyone's saying, no, we're not. We're not that stupid. We're not that, you know, it's a really interesting phenomenon. And I can't wrap my head around it. And then it makes me really wonder what the human game is. What are humans trying to achieve? Because do they really, you know, because like one of the largest, you know, alternative media stars of the 21st century in the early, you know, up until almost now has been Alex Jones. And what's the main thesis of Alex Jones? Well, his main thesis is that we're basically cavemen, and that we have to return to the caveman inside of us while he's surrounded by all this technology. You know, broadcasting out to the world, millions of people saying, you know, return to the body, return to being caveman, you know, it's all over. Transhumanists messed up in the head. And a lot of people buy into this, but then get on a plane, and they buy into this, and then they get on the internet, and they buy into this, and they go to the doctors, and they take supplements, and they buy it. They're living in denial.
Yeah, exactly. But you know something that is really important to try to see right now, that is, we are facing this transformation. Whatever we want to or not, we are going into this war in the coming years, and this is not something that is related with our governments, because the governments only takes 5 years and then replace with new government, and now corporations are they are taking the rule right now, because they are having the economical power. They know the knowledge about the technology, and this is something that we have to regulate. This is something that we have to try to face, not with the government. This is something that in our families we have to talk about this. We have to talk about how we are going to enhance our lives with technology, how we are going to defend ourselves in our brain, because our brain is going to be wide open to the corporations, because they are going to read our minds. They are going to have the possibility to change our thoughts. And that is something that is really worries me, because in Argentina or in Latin America, they don't talk about this. They only talk about how artificial intelligence is going to replace us, and that is a huge mistake. In my opinion, artificial intelligence is not going to replace us. Artificial intelligence is going to have the potential to become, to help us to become in something better. Not just, this is not just to fight against robots or against artificial intelligence, because some people at the same time, they're confused. They think that robots are the same as artificial intelligence. And that is something that we have to explain every time that I have the possibility to give a conference or talk about this issue, because they really confused about this. And another thing that is important, the fear of the people regarding this issue, because they try to ignore this. They try to, no, this is, like you said, this is not for us. This is only for corporations or only for professional people. This is not for me. And that is something that we have to talk in our families. This is something that we have in the main topic of our conversations every day, because this is something that is going to change ourselves. And that is not an issue to give to our government to discuss, because our government try to regulate. They are trying to focus on our trade, or focus on in bilateral relationship around the world. But this is something not just only for economical forum. This is something that we have in our families to talk about this.
Yeah, I agree. This groundswell of normal people talking about these topics, if you can work it up to... I talk to politicians all the time, and this is the thing. I ask them about, what do you think about the Australian Space Agency? What do you think about transhumanism? What do you think about investments in AI? They don't know anything. I'm telling you, I got photos on Facebook. You can go check it out. I talk to politicians all the time. I'm going to be doing a stand-up thing. I'm going to go out on the street soon and hold up a sign and say, why aren't they're cutting out? There was here in my city, there was a $2 or $3 million AI infrastructure investment plan that they cut out. Like they just cut it from the budget, because they said, we don't really understand AI, we don't really need it, whatever. Bye. I mean, it's horrible. It was really interesting talking to Lincoln Cannon, because he comes from the Mormon church. I'm not sure the size of Mormonism in Latin America. It's kind of irrelevant for what I'm going to say, but he's from Mormonism, and he's talking about a gerontocracy. So the oldest people take up the leadership roles in that church function. And they make the decisions for everyone who's younger, right? So it's a gerontocracy, and unfortunately, with democracy, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's a hard topic to talk about. And maybe it's about the size of government, maybe it's the way governments are structured, maybe it's about democracy itself, but democracy in a way ends up as a gerontocracy as well. You end up with a disproportionate number of older people who are kind of out of date, out of touch with a faster and faster changing world. And they say, what's that? I remember in the 1960s, I used to talk about this and this and this, and this is what I talk about now. You get conservatives who are stuck on 1990s loops, of talking points. And the world has moved so far beyond, and it's going to be moving faster and faster and faster. So when I talk to political people, their political rhetoric sounds 10 years old. It sounds 20 years old. It sounds, increasingly old for the changing world that we're moving into. And 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 it's just, and I kind of understand this notion. So you end up with these different speeds as well. So the people in Japan are talking about animal-human hybrids. I mean, are politicians and are people in Latin America talking about animal-human hybrids as being a reality? It's probably not on the tip of the tongues, right? So this is what I mean. So you've got different countries that are moving at different speeds as well. You've got a technologically advanced country like Japan, which is light years ahead of almost everyone else. Yeah. You've got Egypt, which is apparently really, really great in robotics. You've got the United States and the China, which are moving ahead. And you've got all these other countries that are lagging behind, even in their political infrastructure and their political rhetoric. And so at least politicians who are supposed to be elected representatives should be, able to have these conversations. But it seems like this up pressure that you're talking about, this enlightenment from the masses saying that we have to have these conversations and we have to push forward these ideas now or we'll be left behind is kind of a really important notion. And we also talk about here on this show a lot about the democratization of technologies, about spreading the wealth around, spreading the technologies around. How can you spread them around? How can you drop the price point? How can people access these things if they have no knowledge they exist? How can you do that? You have to tell people genetic engineering is a real thing. AI is a real thing. That all of these different technologies are real. And they're happening, and that you have to demand them through your government structure, through your corporate structures, through your advocacy to intergovernmental panels, world organizations such as WHO, United Nations. You have to demand that you access and have access to these technologies. But if you don't know they exist, and there's no pressure, then the bad thing happens is that these technologies do become huddled into the elites, whether that be a country of people who have them or just rich people.
Yeah, I am agree with the things that you are talking about, and I think that the most important problem right now that we are facing is not technology, it's us, because we are facing a new war, but our mindset is from the past. And if we want to enhance with technology, we have to change our minds. We have to think as in singularity. They are talking about everything about this word, exponential. Because exponential is technology, but our brains are from the past. That is not something that is going to help us in the future. For example, the concept of nationalities, the concept of countries. This is something from the past. If we are talking about that in 20 years or 30 years, we are going to have cities on the moon, or in Mars, or in Asgardia, the space nation. And we are talking in 2020, because we are in 1 month, we are going to be in 2020. And we are talking about Australia, Argentina, USA, Japan. This is something, sorry for the word, this is something stupid in my opinion, because I think that if we want to if we want this evolution, we have to change our thoughts and our structure of our mind, because with this closed mind that we are having right now, because of the religion, because of our culture, because our behaviors, this is not helping to understand the future, because the future is going to be impressive, is going to be I don't know how to explain, because I have no words for this, because it's something that even Yuval Harari, they don't have the exactly words to describe the future, because he said the future is going to be something that we really don't know about it, because this is something exponential that we are facing every day. Every day we are facing new information about the developments of different technologies, and this is something that is so fast that anyone around the world have the potential to understand how impressive it's going to be. Only if you put a chip in your brain, maybe you can understand, because you are going to have the entire knowledge of Google in your brains. And like Peter Diamandis says, he said that we are going to have a metal intelligence, because our brains are going to be they are going to be working together, and we are going to share the information brain to the brain. This is something that is impressive, and it's not in 40 years or 50 years. We are talking about in 20 or at least in 50 years that we are going to protect our thoughts, protect our heart, because can be manipulated, and we don't know how we can protect ourselves in these things, because we can understand the technology, and even worse, we can understand ourselves. And this is important to be in the present and focus on we must focus in our heart, and we must focus on to improve ourselves, because this is something not for 20 or 15 years or 5 years. This is something that we have to do right now, because everyone around the world are facing economical crisis, are facing the weather crisis that we're facing right now. But this is something that we have to discuss with ourselves, how we are going to see ourselves in 5 or 10 years, how we are going to have the concept of humans in 20 years, or even less, in 5 years, because technology is going to be not just something external. This is something is going to be ourselves, and this is something that we are going to see when Neuralink of Elon Musk start with the chips in the brains.
Yeah.
And when these things happens, the world is going to be completely different, and it's going to blow my mind. Because I am waiting for this day. I am waiting to see the first superhuman, because we are so close to have on Earth the superhumans, not just in science fiction movies. We are going to see how we are going to transform everything around us, and we have the power, and we have something that even the richest people 20 or 50 years ago didn't have, and we are going to have that potential. But we have to take care of our potential, because otherwise we are going to face a huge problem, because in one case you are going to see a cyber nation like Japan, and on the other hand you are going to have Caribbean countries that right now they are facing economical problems, and at the same time Latin America, they are facing the same issues. They are thinking about if capitalism is good or not, and this is something that we have to talk about 20 years ago. Now, if you are thinking about the evolution of ourselves, talking about politics, talking about Trump, this is something, I don't know, this is something from the past. The most important issue right now is not to defend a political party. We have to defend ourselves, because we have the opportunity to be into this evolution that we are facing. But the consequences, if we don't do anything regarding this, I don't know, but it's not going to be positive if we don't change and we don't start from today this transformation.
I totally agree, and you've mentioned a lot of stuff there. I don't advocate a federation like you see in Star Trek in terms of a United Nations one world government. I've never said that. I wouldn't do that. And the only reason I don't do that is because it becomes a prison planet then. I don't mind a little bit of competition, even between political governments and political forces. Not in a negative way, never in a negative way. But you see, if they make a bad decision, if they make a bad law on Earth, when it's the only planet you have, then that's for everybody, and that's the end of the story, right? And no one can go up against a planetary-wide government that makes a bad decision. So, yeah, even if it was half-half, even if it was 50-50, I mean, you know, then you could choose which one you'd prefer. I mean, that's even more better. Or if it's 7 governments, like a continental government, 1 government for each continent or something like that. For me, that's a better option. Let's say the whole solar system was colonized and there was a bunch of governments out there. So Jupiter had its own government and Mars had its own. Then I would talk about a federation of Earth, because relative to the other powers, you know, even a rump state of asteroid belt states, a collection of asteroid belt governments or whatever, you know, that's fine in that context, because there's relative power balance there. So I wouldn't talk about world government in that way, not while we're still on the planet, but once you leave and you have a diversity and you have options to move, then I'm happy to talk about a world government in that way, because, you know, if you don't like what they do on Earth, just go to Mars or go to Jupiter or go and live on an asteroid or go to Alpha Centauri and freeze yourself and head off if you really hate the solar system. But that would be my argument. That would be my argument in terms of a federation. So I am glad in a way we're still talking about, you know, we're talking about countries. But again, yeah, I understand your point totally, that there should be, you know, it's like the United Nations or something should have a stronger say in geopolitical factors to make you know, because the United Nations Declaration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and all this is a great document. I mean, this is not a bad document. This is something that should be embraced, right? And what you're talking about is a post artificial sort of collectivist idea. You know, post John Stuart Mill and post Machiavellian sort of states and warring states and all this sort of stuff. And I totally agree with that, because if you unpack what humans are, you know, humanism is right there in the middle of the word, right? Transhumanism. And if you unpack it, you find out that the whole world is just full of people who behave differently because of different cultural sets, cultural norms, languages, inputs from food, different, you know, there's all sorts of input. You know, we go on and on and on about the reasons people are different, but at the end of the day, it comes back to the fact that they are humans, that they are human beings, and that, you know, that is the most important factor out of that whole notion. So, yeah, totally know what you mean. I'm not sure if I totally agree, but yeah, and in your other statements, yeah, it is a crazy world, and, you know, it's scarcity. You know, scarcity is the main problem. So when you talk about economic factors, that's usually a supply and demand distribution problem. Yeah. So, you know, why? You know, Latin America, the last time I checked, Latin America is a very prosperous place. And, you know, if it let's say it had a united government, I mean, it could take on the United States as a world powerhouse. I mean, it's not destitute. I mean, there's plenty of agricultural land, plenty of fishing, plenty of minerals and resources down there. You know, Latin America is not a place. It's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful place, but yeah, at the same time, there's inefficiencies in our global system that keep areas of the world depressed. And another thing we like to talk about here on Debt Nation is the fact that, can the world sustain another economic boom on the something relative to China or in India, China economic boom, let's say in Africa, you know, when Africa develops totally and fully. Africa is on the up and up. Many people don't talk about the fact that Africa is on the up and up, but Africa is on the up and up, from Ethiopia to Cameroon to Nigeria to South Africa, Egypt. The whole the place is boomtown in a sort of sense. But how do we help Africa skip some of the dirty development phases and the dirty development phases of the 1800s industrial revolution? I mean, do you really want to open up? I mean, we all want the living standards of people to go up, just as we want the living standards of people in Latin America to go up. But we also don't want to impact the earth, as an externality, negative externality on the planet, because we have to go through this stupid idea of, dirty manufacturing all over again. It's too much. The planet can't do it. And that's not to say, okay, let's ride them off and leave them in poverty, because that doesn't work either. That's a stupid idea as well. So it's how do we help these countries and these people skip development phases, skip dirty development phases, so that their wealth goes up, but also the eco-consciousness goes up along with that wealth curve. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think that the issue to discuss at the political level, I think that must be globally discussed, not something for Argentina or Ethiopia, because they are going to have different opinion in terms of what is going to happen in the coming years. So in my opinion, if we create a world government, we are going to face artificial intelligence around the world. And every step that we are going to face as unique government, we are going to have a prosperous world. Otherwise, I think not around the world we are going to see this impressive world that we are going to have in 10 years. Because, for example, in Latin America, the last month, we are facing some political issues in Chile, Ecuador, Argentina, Bolivia. And this is something that is from the past, because we have to be ready for the future, and we have to unify countries, in my opinion, to discuss these issues, to discuss not just only regarding the climate change. That is something that everyone is informed in this issue, because they know that we don't consume plastic, or maybe we shouldn't eat meat. But this is something even worse in terms of what is going to happen if people don't understand the impact of quantum computing, or artificial intelligence, or how it's going to impact 3D printers, because this is something that this is going to transform everything, and only the rich people in Latin America, they really know about this. But if you go down and see middle class, and even worse, the lowest class in Latin America, they don't know anything about this. And if you ask them, they say, "Oh, I know that is going to have artificial intelligence in our country in maybe 5 or 10 years, but nothing more." And they think this is something external. This is not something that is going to affect us in terms of humans. And if you ask someone, for example, in Argentina or in Colombia or whatever in terms of Latin America about transhumanism, they say, "Oh, this is not a good idea. This is something bad," and they don't know about this concept, because they are really transhumans, because they are using technology, but they don't want to accept that, because no, my religion don't accept this concept. This is something for I don't know, for teenagers or for the Europeans, because they are open-minded, but not for us, because we believe in our religion or in our culture, and our culture don't allow the concept of a transhumanism, because they say, "Oh, this is not good to talk about transhumanism in my family, because this is something like a devil," you know. This is not good. And this is something that it's sadness, because they should talk with their kids about this. It's something that will change their lives in the coming years. Maybe if you ask some people, they are afraid about this concept, or maybe they ignore about it, or they don't have the proper information because they are only watching Netflix, talking only about politics, or maybe they're talking about soccer.
Just say that again. I think your internet is.
America is not to think in terms of 5 or 10 years, like Japan or. Yeah, I was saying that in Latin America, people don't think about what is going to happen in 5 or 10 years. They think only what is going to happen at the end of this year. This is not the same mindset that you have in Japan or Germany or in some places in USA.
Andrew Yang, a politician in the United States who you're familiar with, but a lot of people aren't. Andrew Yang, he has this cool quote basically where he says poverty is interest. I can't remember exactly how the quote goes, but basically poor people are, they're charged more because they're poor. And, because when you're poor, you don't go to the dentist as often, you get rotten teeth. Then it costs you more in the long run to get them all fixed. When you're poor, you don't get that car checked. You're going to get your car checked as often. You're more prone to getting into a car crash and then having medical bills. When you're poor, you don't buy proper shoes. Your feet wear out quicker. When you're poor, you don't get as much rest as other people, so your brain wears out. When you're poor, it costs to be poor. It costs interest to be poor. It compounds on itself. Being poor is a cost, right? And when you're rich, you can afford to buy your way out of solutions and take time to learn and sit down and read and relax and figure out better, more efficient solutions to problems, and buy services that enhance your life that in the long run save you money, that you never get a rotten tooth and you don't have to pay for surgery, that you never get into that car crash, you don't drink dirty water, so you're not sick as often, which means you can work more and higher paid jobs, and you can dress better, and you can afford to have spare money over to invest, to make more money. I mean, so poor people are punished, right? And it's the same with I find with countries, because I think of countries as essentially people when I look at it as a composite. And poor countries are thinking the same thing. The poor countries are thinking, how do I just get over the next year, 2 years, 3 years? I need to get over this short-term hurdle of water and sewerage and road infrastructure and basic services. All this gibberish, Judah, hoo-ha about genetic engineering, biotechnology, robotics, artificial intelligence, anything else, 3D printing, rapid transit. That's all hoo-bah, hippity hoo-bah, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean anything. It's all off in the future jib-jab gibberish, right? Because it's an investment that these countries can't even afford to think about. So the people... The rhetoric and the people respond to each other. There's a cyclical relationship there. So the people on the lower levels are thinking about, how do I get to the end of this day? How do I get to the end of this week? And if they're lucky, maybe they're thinking about the end of the month. I mean, but people in these other countries, Japan is thinking 30 years ahead. Japan in the 90s was thinking about space missions and space moon bases and stuff like that. I don't think Bolivia is thinking about space moon bases. America is talking about, no. Americans are a bit upset because they're like, oh, we could have been on Mars in the 1960s. We could have been on Mars in the 1970s. We could have been Mars in 1980. On and on and on until 2020. But they're talking about Mars because they have all these other. It's a long-term vision, you see, and so. Because they have the resources and ability to contemplate these things. And even George Bush launched a huge, massive flop, but you know, it was a moon-based idea. So even George Bush, who's not exactly the biggest far-thinking person I've ever seen in my life, was thinking, okay, just as a prestige act, you know, let's go to the moon for fun, right? So it's this poverty breeds short-term thinking. This sort of wealth effect is this long-term thinking, yeah? So I find that someone like you, who futurists have a tough job in these countries, because they're saying you have to think outside of the span of your capabilities. But the thing is, and here's where the gold nugget is the internet exists. People are like, you know, there's a community of people and a community of companies and a community out there in the world that are willing to either make money or to assist with their own time, personal effort, or, you know, there's international organizations that are plenty of money. They're willing to help. The thing is, you have to just shake these countries and go, wake up. You can if you wake up, you can access this infrastructure, you can access these ideas, you can access these technologies, you can implement them into policy and into strategy. I mean, you don't have to spend $3 billion on the genome project. You can get it for $100. Okay, it's already been done for you. You can get it on pennies on the dollar. You can access the internet infrastructure for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to having to develop it. This is all free overflow. You know, you don't have to do that hard work. And this is why we're talking about Africa skipping development phases as well. But that's the trouble. That's the struggle that you futurists have to trying to wake these people up, because they're stuck in that next month, next year, next 3 years, short-term thinking.
Yeah, and that is something is going to be worse, because with technology and with the improvements that some countries they are going to have, like UAE or China, you are going to see different worlds if you travel. And this is something that happens to me when I travel for example, to UAE. I saw a different world. I saw that I was in the future for a while. And when I come back to Latin America, I felt like to be in the 80s. And right now, in the entire continent, I am feeling that I am living the 80s. And this is something really sad. And this is not for the economical problem that we are facing right now in the continent. This is something for the mindset, because, like you said, Latin America is a rich continent. We have natural resources. Now we have lithium. Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia, they have plenty of lithium. And this is something that is a huge opportunity to have the wide open business in Latin America, and bring all the best technology and bring all the best corporations to come to Latin America, and especially to Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia, and invest, or maybe do some joint ventures with these companies in Argentina, for example, or with the government, because lithium is the goal in the coming years to develop the new technology. For example, autonomous cars or cell phones. You require plenty of lithium. And Argentina and Bolivia and Chile has more than half of the lithium around the world. So if we don't change our mind, if we have the same mental structure, we are not going to see this marvelous future that we are going to have in some part of the world.
Yeah, and you know, and the other thing is, for the most part, your currencies are fairly cheap. So you know, if you want to do like manufacturing in that country, I mean, all you have to do is there's the company digging the lithium up there and then produce the batteries around the corner. You don't have to ship them all the way down here to Melbourne or Adelaide or wherever they're getting produced. But yeah, this is the struggle. I mean, this is the idea. And your governments have to do a good sales job. But yeah, this notion of living in the 80s, I totally understand it. If there's parts of Australia that don't keep pace with other parts of Australia, for example, but the whole of Australia is fairly it's developed, but it's not consistent. I mean, that one of the problems is, I mean, population. We have 25 million people. We have a huge continent to develop, a lot of money per capita, but at the same time, huge continent. I mean, it's huge. I mean, you know, it rivals the United States in terms of the size. I mean, there's arguments of which is bigger, the United States or Australia, and it's the United States. Plus, if you add Alaska on, then it's easily the United States. And all the territories as well, which don't equate to that much space, but it's, you know, it helps. But, you know, so it's a huge continent, fairly rich continent, but, you know, it's at the same time, there's development phases here. And, you know, because a lot of people want to talk about Sydney or Melbourne when they're talking about Australia, and I'm sorry I'm going about Australia, but if you go to an Aboriginal community, that's the Stone Age. I'm sorry, it's true. These people live in abject poverty, essentially. You know, and there's a whole bunch of issues and reasons for that. I don't even want to get into that, but that's part of the Australian experience as well. And these people are in the Stone Age essentially, and with cars, it's kind of a messed up scenario, you know. So yeah, it's messed up. So yeah, you know, I don't know. It's hard, and you know, Latin America. Caribbean is a whole nother issue, you know, Haiti and all that. That's a tough one because, you know, a lot of those islands, they develop and then they get a hurricane, right? And then they go back, and then they have to spend a lot of their finite resources on just rebuilding where they were up to. So how are they ever going to advance? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And another issue to add is if you see the whole continent, the whole Latin America, you are going to see that this is not something that too many people really know in terms of study the markets. For example, in Argentina, you have only 2 provinces that are growing, and we are having 23 provinces. And this is around the world a huge issue, because before 20 years ago or 10 years ago, we used to talk about countries, but now this is the moment of cities. And now you have some cities that their development is much better than the rest of the country. For example, in Colombia, Medellin, Bogota, they are different if you compare the other provinces of Colombia. For example, Peru, only Lima, they have the plenty power and is 55% of the DGP only is in Lima. So in this sense, you can realize that we must focus on cities right now. We can't talk about countries. And I think it's the same in USA. California can be a country. It's not the same as other cities in USA. It's similar like in Spain, Barcelona, Madrid. If you compare with the other states of Spain, we are seeing right now the development of the cities and how it's going to be necessary to unify these cities that are the development is so fast with cities that the development is too low. Because if we continuously talking about the development of the countries and the politicians don't realize that we have to give a new structure of economical rules right now. And this is not just only for trade. This is something for the development for education or the development of the new culture that we are going to face. And in my opinion, in the case of, for example, in Bolivia, Santa Cruz de la Sierra can be a country. Santa Cruz de la Sierra don't need to be part of Bolivia, for example. And this is something that is not only the case of Bolivia. We are talking, for example, in Bolivia to have the most development city in Latin America, because we are building the best smart city in Latin America. And if you compare the rest of the country, this is not similar. like Santa Cruz de la Sierra. And the same, if you compare Argentina, for example, Buenos Aires can be a country, or Tierra del Fuego of the war, because too many foreigners travel to this beautiful city and see the improvements, and they see the development is so fast, but it's not the same with other provinces in Argentina. So this is another issue that we have to face, and that's why if we want to develop this new world that we're going to face, we have to unify the governments and talk about only with one book, not to spread different books, different rules, because are regulated, and the development of all the technologies must be in the same way. And like you said before, we have to democratize the technology, because at the moment in Latin America, only the rich people have the access to study machine learning or big data or quantum computing, and this is not fair. And that is something that we have to change. And the problem is the politicians are thinking about to export, they are thinking about how to bring in investment, and nowadays we're facing that not the industrial era that we are having before. Because now you can have your company in your house, because you can build with a 3D printer whatever you want to do, and you have internet, so you can have your company in your home. So it's not necessary to bring investment to build huge companies. And if you can bring huge companies, this is not going to help the country, because the country requires people to work to have the development of the country. But if you bring international companies to your country, you are not going to have the employee of that company, because a machine is going to replace you. And maybe if you are smart enough, maybe you are going to have a job into that company. Otherwise, it's not necessary. So we have plenty of challenges right now, and like I said at the beginning of our conversation, the most problematic issue that we are facing in Latin America is the mindset, because we can live with any problem, because like you said, we have plenty of natural resources. For example, Argentina can provide food for more than 400,000 people, and we only have the population 45 million, and we can give food for 5 Argentinas if you want, and we have 35% of the population that is poor. So this is something that I can understand why it's happening this in Argentina. Maybe it's the corruption, maybe it's the mindset, but in this new world that we are going to face, if we don't change our mind, if we don't prepare for the future, we are going to face a huge problem. And I think that some cities, the development of some cities are much better than the other cities, that they are not thinking about innovation or creativity or boost education, because that is something necessary, and we must work on that. Otherwise, I don't know what is going to be the Latin American continent in 10 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's some really interesting thoughts in there. Development of cities, let's talk about that, because that was a theme that came up over and over. And, you know, regional development, yeah, it's important. I mean, but the actual amount of people in an industrialized country in any region always drops. So you have to look at the UK for that example, because that was the country that kicked off the Industrial Revolution. after they innovated in coal, like they did coal innovations, for example, and they kicked off the Industrial Revolution. And it wasn't very long until London there was a tipping point where London became more populated than the rest of the country combined. And that was quite quick. Urbanization was quite a quick phenomenon because the rise of machines means that labor, the labor value of labor went up, I guess, and the attraction to higher wages because of those labor weights, so the value of labor went up because the value of the work that they were doing was higher because you could produce more textiles per person, per man hour, or whatever. And so the wages went up, and they followed that, and it was all condensed in an area, and they all condensed around these factories. So you ended up with mass urbanization quite quickly in the 1800s. Urbanization was really rapid, and in the 21st century, urbanization has continued unabated. The 20th century was the century of mass urbanization, where it was a sort of urbanization of a new standard, a new model of urbanization. I mean, urbanization was attempted fairly well in Europe. I mean, when you're talking about the World War I, regional areas are still a thing, but by World War II, you can bomb a whole city like Dresden or London and win the war. The urbanization in Europe was quite sophisticated. The second half of that century, urbanization was formulated into national policy, where the rise of cities was exponential. You look at any map, urbanization map, and cities just exploded across the planet. Every single city exploded across the planet. Yeah. And more people are living in cities now. I think they call it the urban transition in demographics or something. But the amount of urbanization now outstrips the amount of people in regional areas, and I think that's set to continue. I do have a demographics book here for the actual stats somewhere. But yeah, I think it's either the tipping point's either happened where we're over 50%, or it's way over that. But the massive urbanization is there, and politicians have to concentrate on regional areas, old geopolitical games like Paraguay, I think, was a country that was just born out of nothing because it was a buffer state between Argentina and Brazil, because Argentina and Brazil had multiple wars, if I recall correctly. Yeah. So they built these things. Yeah. But nowadays these geopolitical games, I'm kind of torn on this because you do the efficiency that cities generate is huge. I mean, and if you can really work out the structure of cities so that they do become zero waste, then you have a more efficient planet. I mean, vertical living is better. Vertical farming is increasingly better. You can get better food so you can leave the and most sci-fi ideas become the fact that you have mega metropolises such as New York, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, London, Moscow. I don't know, some other city. You have these mega metropolis areas, and then the regions become essentially just national parks or world parks or something like that, and they're just left alone with very small communities that either tend to the parks or do live out their lives for scientific research or scientific purposes. And you can see this in a cultural context of Hollywood, such as the Hunger Games, right? Where it's a sort of dystopic future where the urban metropolis is sort of like a Rome idea, where you have the Colosseum. It's a digital Colosseum, or it's a real Colosseum with digital infrastructure, and they want blood from the regions, so the regions play off against each other, and you end up with that scenario. But Yeah, urbanization is incredibly important for efficiency's sake, and upgrading the people and infrastructure in a smaller geographic area is easier. But what do you say about the people who aren't urbanized? What do you say about, because this is kind of where I'm talking, like where I want to go. What about people who don't live in cities? I mean, even though they're increasingly small of number, do you still care about them, or do you think that we should all just urbanize?
Well, I'm seeing that the same situation that we are seeing in China, for example, that in the last 2 years, too many people from the rural areas went to the cities. The same situation is happening right now in Latin America, especially if I have to talk about Argentina or Bolivia. I would say that rural areas nowadays are going to be empty places because they don't have opportunities to grow, and I think that the only solution for this is to use the rural areas not just to use for the growth of the nation. We have to use the rural areas for build something like innovation centers, or places to have activities of innovation or creativity places, in this scenario, I think that right now around the world, 500 cities represent 80% of the GDP of the world, and that is going to goes up in the next coming years. So like you said, this is something that we have to face right now as an issue, to see how to give the structure of this new economy that we are going to have in the coming years, and that's why I think the concept of nationality, and I think the concept of culture, future cities are going to be the new countries. And the most development cities, they have the challenge to help the other cities to grow, because we have to looking for the globalization. But now the globalization is the globalization of cities, not the globalization of countries. And that is something that not too many politicians realize about this issue. But they say, no, we have to talk about the country because the country is the future. No, this is not correct. If you are in UK, you have only 2 states. If you are in Germany, you have only four places that you are going to see the development of their economy. The rest of the country is not the same. So this is something that we have to figure out the way to give the new structure. And this structure, the new structure for this concept, is not going to be the industrial revolution, because the industrial revolution is going to change the concept of work, is going to change the concept of bring investment, because with the code we can give power to other person. For example, if you want to know about how to build something that in your country you don't have, well, I have this information. So the only thing that I have to do to help you is I have to give you the information. You have to have the computational power to do this, because otherwise you can use your 3D printer to do this. But if you have a computational power and you have the knowledge to print this thing that in your country you don't have, well, now you can. That's why the concept of trade is going to change as well, because the only thing that you require in the new era of commerce is codes, nothing more. Because artificial intelligence and 3D printers are going to help you to develop this new commerce. And the issue for the rural areas is we must build in those areas new places of innovation to develop this new commerce. For example, new technologies, or bring some experts around the world to develop new commerce in the rural areas, to spread around the country this new commerce. And I think that this is something that is going to help if the national governments starting to do the rules, because if they don't do the rules for artificial intelligence, quantum computing, or 3D printers, or machine learning, we are going to see that some cities in Japan, or some cities in Germany, or some cities in UK or in USA, they are going to be in the new century, in 2 or 3 centuries more than the century that you are having right now. And this is something that we have to think quickly, because otherwise we are going to have a tremendous problems in the coming years. Because in some cases in Latin America, too many politicians are talking about to bring investment, and they are talking about the country, and this is not have any sense, because you can bring investment for your country, but who is going to be see the benefits of that?
Yeah.
Because even if you bring the investment, you are not going to receive the money, because the money is going to put in the Seychelles island or in Panama, but the money is not going to be in your country. so that is something that doesn't have any sense at all.
Yeah, and you call it between two giants there. You call it between, it's just like Australia here. You call it between either China or America, and you can choose, you know, your poison, right? So it's a hard choice. It's a tough choice, and yeah, it's nuts. But I want to touch on something. So you mentioned, you know, these rural areas have to have, you know, the future is code, yeah? So I just did an interview with a gentleman, James, and he's basically building a thing called Cube Spawn. I'm not sure if you've seen that episode. Great episode. Go and watch it, everybody, if you can. But basically, this machine, it's a manufacturing machine. You know, he wants to use it for aquaponics for the start, but it's going to eventually, you know, in its later editions, its later stages, it's a prototype now. It's basically a 3D printer on steroids. That's what it really is. And it could self-repair in its later stages, so it could analyze its own parts. Say the part is breaking down, reprint its own part so it's fully repairable, fully functionable, and give these. You could print, manufacture almost anything you want, right? And you do need raw materials to import into this, to bring into this machine. But again, you go from a linear economy, extract the linear economy idea, and go to a closed economy or a circular economy with minimal inputs, raw materials being one of these big inputs. You can go garbage mining, or trash mining, as they'd say in the United States, where you mine through and get plastics. You know, so that turns the Great Pacific Garbage Patch into a gold mine, for example. I mean, you could install these things all over, and it's open source. People can build this stuff at home. Once you download the components, you can print out the original components using a 3D printer, and stuff like this. If this project gets off the ground, you can give these rural areas access to printable innovations that detether themselves from support networks from larger infrastructural cities. Okay, so you can alleviate and give back power to local communities. So at the moment, we have this huge interconnected mass of trucks and ships and aircrafts and planes. Not all that's all a bad thing. He specifically doesn't like shipping, for example, because in certain zones of national water territory, which is like international law is like 3 miles off the coast or something. It's not a very large territory, depending on what you consider. The outside of those water zones, you end up in international law where there's no pollution controls. So some of these ships massively overpolluting. 30% of global pollution is produced by these cargo ships, and he hates that. So he's invented CubeSpawn, which is in a prototype phase, which is going to be able to revolutionize product production across the planet. And this is something that these rural folk in Latin America could greatly benefit from, because it would decouple them and it would give them back their independence. It would give them back their dignity. It would give them back their, their sovereignty from a lot of the forces, not just local forces, not just giant cities or whatever, but local forces as well. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that the same as I said before, the problem is the mindset of the people. The problem is if we continuously think in the century of the past, we are going to don't find the solution of the future. But if we change our mind and we start thinking in exponential way, we are going to face the world in different scenario. And the problem is not just something in Latin America, the issue. I think in general we are facing this problem, and this is something that we have to act quickly, because the time is running out, and we don't have the proper solutions for things that are easily to find the solution for these things. And I think that we definitely start thinking in different way, because in general the mindset must change.
Yeah, I totally agree. The mindset must change. Exponential thinking does change your life. It changes it in massive ways. Thinking exponentially is an incredible tool, and it's something that can unlock a mind to possibilities and imaginations that's just incredible. But I just want to know this thing. Why Bolivia? Why Bolivia? Why are you bullish on Bolivia? I don't get it.
I choose Bolivia because I think the growth in Latin America in the last 10 years was in Bolivia. And that's why I choose Bolivia to develop this innovation of this center of innovation, because I saw that Bolivia is growing, but requires technology and people with new ideas to boost the economy. Because in the future you are going to require people with the knowledge and companies to bring technology to your country. And Bolivia, at the same time, is growing, but in the future is going to face the same problem as other countries in Latin America if they don't start working in innovation or in technology. That's why recently the last government, because recently resigned Evo Morales, decided to create a Ministry of Science and Technology. That is something in Bolivia we didn't have before. And now I think the future of Bolivia depends on technology, not in natural resources, even in lithium.
Yeah, I just don't get it, because like Bolivia, I mean, is it because it's a landlocked country that they focus on innovation? Well, they are starting to focus on innovation because, they've lost so many wars over the points of time. They claim the territory in Chile. I mean, they still want that sea access back. They can't get it. They're a landlocked country now. Is it because they're landlocked that they're trying to innovate their way out of that problem? Because usually how it works in the global economy is that if you have sea access, you're doing okay. If you're a landlocked country, you're pretty much stuffed, because the United States is really powerful because it can access the Atlantic and the Pacific. Great Britain was more powerful than most of them because it could access global sea infrastructure. Is it because Bolivia is this landlocked country with quite a large population and quite a large GDP, or per capita GDP at least, that they're concentrating on innovation because they don't have a choice? Is that the idea?
Yeah, the idea, you mean in general of Bolivia, or in my opinion?
Up to you. I mean, I'm just confused because I don't. I mean, I've seen Argentina as a bright spot. I've always seen Argentina as a bright spot. Brazil as a bright spot, putting aside the rainforest destruction. Brazil is as a bright spot. Venezuela was a bright spot until it went into a socialist racket, and Mexico arguably could be Mexico is a nothing country, but it happens to be next to the United States, so we have to talk about Mexico. Do you know what I mean? So, but I've never thought about Bolivia as being anything but a landlocked country that just loses wars.
I'm going to give you a short answer. Lithium. Yeah. Because with lithium, you are going to build a new technology, and Bolivia has plenty of lithium, but they have a problem. They need people to build this new technology that we are going to have in the coming years. That's why I assume this challenge to move my ideas to Bolivia, because I saw that the potential of this, and I think that once we start moving forward in terms of doing some events regarding technology and invite international companies to come to Bolivia and see the potential of the country, people are going to realize how Bolivia is going to be in 2050. If we use properly the benefits of the lithium, we are going to see a rich country in 2 decades from now on.
So you want to see local manufacturing of lithium products, not just because Australia, we are basically just an exporter. We dig up coal and we sell it to the world. We dig up iron ore and we sell it to the world. We produce manufacturing goods and we sell it to the world, and we produce hardly nothing. You're saying don't do that. You're saying dig up the lithium, produce a product, and sell it to the world.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time,
value added.
The idea, and the idea is to bring international partnerships to come to Bolivia. We don't want to sell anything in terms of come to Bolivia because we want to export. No, we want to do joint ventures, and once we do that, we are going to take the advantages of the lithium and the stronger economy that we are working. Despite the political crisis that we just having in the last 20 days, despite of that, Bolivia is still growing. It doesn't matter if Evo Morales is the president or not, because lithium is going to be with Evo Morales or not, and it doesn't matter if we have a political party, especially for this, because it doesn't matter the political issues right now. The only thing that is important, in my opinion, is to have lithium, because you have the gold in your hands, the black gold in your hands. And that's why if you can use this element properly, you can do of Bolivia the new Dubai in 2050 without any doubt. So I think that Bolivia has this potential, but the problem of Bolivia is, when you talk about Bolivia, people think that it's a poor country, no opportunities, it's not a nice country to visit. Well, that's why in Santa Cruz de la Sierra, we are building in a smart city. and we are building this new concept of business through the innovation of, through the innovation center of Bolivia. And we are going to show to the people around the world all the potential regarding this, and we are going to invite them to join us and build the future together.
Well, that's a beautiful note to leave it on, and thank you very much, Doctor, for coming on to Detonation to tell us about Latin America and updating us on Latin American transhumanism. I'd like to get you on another show when I can get some of this technical stuff sorted out eventually one day. That's how
Sure.
it is with these shows, and not always goes correct. But anyway, yeah, it's been fantastic. I'm really, you know, South America, Latin America, a lot of progress has been made, and a lot of progress still to go. That's kind of how it is with Latin America. But yes, I think education, which is basically what you've been the revolving subject, education is core, it's key. And again, we've had a lot of different people on talking about education and education methods, because transhumanists are kind of policy wonks, and they kind of write in journals, and they kind of sit in their offices, and it's very hard to, to allow transhumanists to express their actual ideas, because either they're talking to politicians, or they're writing in journals, or they're, it's hard. And I'm attempting to do it with this show, just to have a little bit of a platform so that transhumanists can come together and speak and share ideas and know who each other are around the world. And we're talking mainstreaming transhumanism. That's the title font of, that's the subtext of this show. But education is to the masses is a completely different idea. And maybe a children's book is something that's come up over and over and over again, so you get the next generation. But again, we're talking about 50 years, so you need people to educate the people who are 25 years old now, who are 30s, in their 30s, who are in their early 40s. These are the people that you want to talk to, and want to educate ASAP on all these different technologies that are coming up. And if you want to do what you're talking about with Bolivia, in the sense of making that country into a value-added country, where it's not just not just ripping up minerals out of the ground and selling them for the raw product, and then re-importing better products at a premium, which leaves the country at a net neutral, which is not helpful. Then you really need to educate that population on these advances in technology. You need to get them thinking exponentially, and you need to get them writing and thinking and doing commerce and policy making and infrastructure building along these lines. And that's a tough task. It's not impossible. It's a tough task. And we're here to assist, and we're here to help. So thank you very much, Doctor, for coming on Detonation, and I wish you all the best in that task. And I'd love to talk to you again ASAP about more about Latin America and future updates and things like that. We've had Jose Cordero on, who's he's big in Latin America, but he's also over there in Spain doing European stuff. So I think of him as a European update. So thank you very much for giving us a Latin American experience. And yes, and we will see you again soon on Detonation, where we...
Thank you. And...
Oh, you've dropped out. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Doctor. And that's Detonation, where we are putting death out of business. Thank you very much, Doctor. You dropped out.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.